So I got my hair cut, doesn't
Yes,
look
it's
nice.
very cute.
So I'm really glad we're filming now because you're never going to see it look this good again until I get it cut again.
It's cute.
Thanks.
It's very cute.
I thought it was a very strategically timed. It was my strategic that was
I know,
like,
you
can we
come in looking all nice and like,
stop. It's like, can we film Jen and Millie at 10 o'clock today instead of 8 because then that will be after my hair appointment instead of before it.
I also wore color today on purpose.
It's like very
Lauren, your mom listens to what you say. I deliberately wore a color.
That's, just a hint off of white and blue into blue.
I was going to say it looks white on the camera. I did bring this because last week we talked about grief, and I just want to put a little plug in for this awesome book by Roseanne Liesfeld. You will hear Tess and I often talk about the CSF guy, Kurt Liesfeld, who had, I think, an influence on a lot of people in the strengths world. But when he passed away unexpectedly, his wife took that difficulty and turned it into a shared journey where she shared with other people via social media. And a lot of people said, Roseanne, you should put it in a book. So she wrote these little daily posts about the gratitude and the grief, and it's compilated now in a book. And I'm loving it, absolutely loving it. And so because we talked about it last week, I thought this would be a good tie-in. Yeah. We did hear from someone who reached out about self-care and about their moment of pause. And she mentioned that the last time she was just being still, she was reading John O'Leary's On Fire book, which is another really, really good book. But I think her reference was to giving her achiever maybe a break, because most mornings are busy, 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 and all the things she has to do. And the last time that she was able to just be, she got lost in a book. That's a great kind of being when Definitely. You can just get lost in a book. I would strongly recommend this for anyone at any time, because I think it speaks to, you have two things that you can do in tragedy and grief and loss, and or any kind of transition or struggle. You can be stuck in it, or you can work your way through it, and to do that publicly, that's brave. And I loved it, and I love everything about it. So wanted to give a little plug for that. And then I specifically brought my coffee cup in because I wanted to be cool this time and not just have water but have coffee like an adult. And the coffee creamer is very
solidified.
Not creamery. So I will not be
Back to the water.
Back to the water.
I think it's more of an adult to drink water instead of coffee because it's much healthier for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people, like myself, take coffee drinking to an extreme.
Yeah.
Negatively.
I'm trying to be better.
Yes. Just give me an IV. That would be much more healthy.
I have anxiety like the dog if I drink that much coffee. So good morning, Tess.
Good morning.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
We have fun things to talk about today. I'm very excited because I feel like today I feel a little bit like I'm on ESPN.
Oh, yeah.
Because we're going to dissect a map. Actually, Tess is going to dissect a map because she's really good at it. And we've had a lot of conversation recently about the 4 domains. So all 34 strengths fall within 4 different domains. And one of the things that I loved about Tess's learning that was a little bit different from my learning, my CSBE did not include a lot of focus on the 4 domains, or even a lot around mapping. And I think Gallup's come a long way with what they're doing with the full 34, but also with team maps. And Tess is really, really good at dissecting the map and interpreting the map. So I'm excited about it, but also because I've kind of always wanted to be, I was on radio years ago, but I kind of always wanted to be on TV where I could make circles and
You do
squares
that
and
with a lot of
yeah,
things.
I do. I like doing things like that. So I'm kind of excited about today because I get to watch you do that.
Oh,
And I think
cool.
Hannah's going to doctor it up to look super ESPN-like because in her post-production, that's how she referred to it. And then I felt so like a real anchor. I felt like an anchor person, which I've never had.
And you've been talking about that word for 5 days since we've.
Post-production.
Yep.
I love it. I mean, because Hannah's just like, yeah, in post-production I'll do this. And I'm thinking, oh, who uses that language but really talented people that know what to do with
That's
video.
studied broadcasting
Right.
for a living, so
Right.
that's good.
Not me. My post-production is cut and paste. And I use a filter to hide my wrinkles. So let's talk the chart. What we did is we took a look at a team map, and it's a pretty robust team map. And what Tess is going to do is break it on down. She's going to take a look at the 4 domains. I think we talked about on one of our previous episodes about a little bit about the domains, but I loved, and I think it's a great reminder, if you happen to be a person who has all of your strengths in a certain area, or maybe none of your strengths in a certain area, this does not mean that you don't execute and influencing. Fine. It does not mean that you don't execute, or you don't influence, or you don't build relationships, or you don't think. It just means that this is where the strengths kind of fall in, but each one of these actually gets to do that in certain ways. So I'll let you
Definitely.
talk about that.
Definitely.
Because you do it very well.
What we're going to do is really talk about these 4 domains and also look at the team map. But before we look at the team map, we want to talk a little bit about what these 4 domains mean as an individual. So each of us have our top 5 strengths, and they fall into these 4 domains. And so executing, which means getting things done, being efficient in doing things. Influencing is the ability to influence or have sway over other people. Relationship building is the ability to build relationships in different ways. And then strategic thinking, the ability to critically and strategically think about processes or things or people. And so each of these 4 domains has the 34 themes then sorted into those domains. And the way that Gallup really talks about these is each of these, and you can see on our map when you look at it more closely, there's this thick black line in between each of these. But when Gallup talks about them, you really shouldn't think of the difference between these themes as walls, but as more membranes. That you have the ability to move kind of fluidly throughout them, even though everyone is definitely dominant in one theme or one category, one domain or another. You're easily able to kind of jump these walls or filter through these membranes in different ways. They're not meant to be confining. They're meant to really help us look holistically at more so a team. When I do a lot of work with individuals, I don't usually do a lot of work with the 4 domains because it's really the domains and the filtering of that is really for the purpose of the team to look holistically. Because when you look at the 4 domains, automatically people say, okay, well, I don't have any in this.
Right.
So if you look at my top 5 or even my top 10, I only have in my dominant themes, my top 11, I only have themes in relationship building and strategic thinking. Only those 2. I don't have any in executing, and I don't have any in influencing. But if you're walking around the teammate's office, you know that I get things done. I mean, each chapter has their dashboard every summer, and Civicor continues to run, and the things that are my responsibility, they still get done. So it doesn't mean I don't execute. I definitely do execute. It doesn't mean I can't influence others. I've spoken in front of large groups of people at church. I've do breakout sessions at teammates. I have the ability to influence others, but I don't have any influencing themes. And one story I love a coach shared with us with my class when I was at Gallup was that she was individually coaching the vice president of strategic initiative for a large banking organization in the South. And they had revealed his full 34, and she was doing individual coaching. And in his dominant themes, which was his 1 through 12, there was not one strategic thinking theme in it. And he is like, how is that possible? It's in my job title. I get paid 6 figures to do this job. That's all about strategic initiative, all about planning, and I don't have any strategic thinking themes. And the coach simply replied to him and he said, but you still think, right? You still think. You just do it through the lenses of some of these other strengths in other domains. And so I still get things done, I still influence, but I do it a lot through building relationships with people and being able to critically think about the situation. So similar to you, Allie, you are a little skewed in some areas.
Yes. And I think about, so I don't have any in executing. And I think about the people around me and how much I appreciate their input and how much I appreciate them helping me to think through decisions and make decisions. Because by nature, I'm not good at pulling the trigger.
Sure.
And so I love when I can look at this and see the people around me who are more fluent in executing themes. I love to see how if I would have been in charge of the 34 and where to plug them in, would I have chosen plugging them somewhere differently?
Interesting.
Because I see Woo as a relationship building, and I see Maximizer as executing. I mean, I just see some of these a little bit differently. But I also, it helps me a lot to think about, wow, we are all uniquely different, and how these really help a team consider one another and be thoughtful about what does change feel like to a person who maybe has these certain talent themes. I mean, what does change feel like? What does conflict feel like? What does confusion feel like? So we are using, we're going to talk a little bit today about the team after Tess does the dissection. But what I would love to talk about too is we took a team blend activity direct from one of the resources that's on the Dropbox.
The Dropbox.
Hard words.
Monday morning
on the Dropbox to think about how do we overcome obstacles as a team when we're looking at this team's talent map. And we just took a faux team.
Company X.
I use the word faux. Oh. I never do that well, and I just did.
Gotta you celebrate words.
Yeah, I do. So we have a faux team here, and Team Faux X. We are going to take a look at what their strengths are, but then thinking about a little analysis of this team.
Sure.
Does this team have any potential blind spots? How do they communicate? What drives them? So. Can you do your magic?
Of course.
Okay.
I would just say one thing before we jump into the team dynamics is with these 4 domains, kind of to wrap up the individual. If you look at your top 5 and you say, okay, I don't have this, or I'm not good at this, I can't influence, I can't execute, I would just say get rid of those thoughts, number 1. But then also there's this awesome activity that I love that we can do, and I'll have Allie send it out in the email. But it is called, what is it called? A talent map. So it's for the individual. So we're going to go through the team map. What we're going to send out is a talent map. And I'm just going to draw it for you. I didn't print it off. And so what you would do is you would take your themes.
We did this as a staff.
About a year ago, I believe.
About a year ago, yeah, we did.
Building, what's the last one? And so what it does is it doesn't explicitly call them the 4 domains, but it takes each of the domains and asks, how do you get things done? How do you influence or sway other people? How do you best build relationships? And how do you think about things? And it has you take each of your themes, so you write them across the top, and it creates almost a grid for you. So you're able really in just a few sentences here, this is incredibly, consistency is very low for me, so ESPN right here, or a precursor of it. So it has you take each of your themes, and in each of these boxes, which are consistent on the one that will be sent out to you, this PDF, you write just a sentence or two about how my theme of context, which traditionally is a strategic thinking theme, how it allows me to get things done. So I would say my context allows me to get things done because I'm able to look at what's been done beforehand and am able to see what has worked and what hasn't worked in order to make a decision about what to do in the future. My context helps me to influence other people by rallying a team around a new vision based on what has come before. It allows me to build relationships because I am so interested in people's personal history. I remember things that they've told me. I remember experiences that they've shared about their childhood, things like that. And then it allows me to think strategically by looking towards the past in order to understand what's going on now. So really, it allowed me to take my one theme of context, which is a strategic thinking theme, and dial it down to say, how do I use my context to execute, to influence, to build relationships, and to think? And so really, it helps you break out those themes. It helps you break them out of the confines of what you would think is that one domain that they're in. Because all of our themes are filtered through these 4 domains, but context does primarily function as a strategic thinking theme. But since it's so strong in me, since all of our top 5 are really strong talents for us, they do filter through all 4. So it's just an activity that I would suggest because I think a lot of people, especially individually, just get hung up on these 4 domains. And really they're meant for the purposes of, once again, fully understanding our strengths and especially understanding them at a team level, not always an individual level.
Right. And I think it's kind of like if we have someone who maybe doesn't own or recognize or love one of their top 5, and if we start to look at that strength as okay, I wish I had this, or I want it to be like this, but actually just getting to know the joy of it, getting to know the strengths with the tool that's within it. I think that's a key piece, just like utilizing the 4 domains.
Awesome. So now we'll dive into a team talent map here. So if you have not seen one of these before, a team talent map, we've taken this Company X, this faux team, I'll use your word here, and we've taken each of the 34 strengths that are in each of the 4 domains. This is a Strengths Quest map because we utilize Strengths Quest. They might look a little differently. Strengths Finder is each of these 4 domains are color-coded based on executing as purple, influencing is yellow, relationship building is blue, and strategic thinking is red. And so you might see them look a little differently, but it's the exact same concept. Each one is filtered, each of the 34 strengths is in its domain. And then what we've done from there is we've taken each individual, you can see goes horizontally across this chart, and their top 5 are marked within each domain underneath that strength.
I'll send a blank grid out with the recording. And when you go to put your number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, it actually is all set to color code. Yep.
Awesome. Now that we've rearranged positions, let's take a look at how we would dissect this. So first I'm going to take a look at how many are in each of these individual domains. And so regardless of the individual, we're going to total each domain. So in this first one, executing, we have 30. Oh, now my handwriting looks really bad in this. That's okay. Then in influencing, there are 13, I believe. Relationship building, there are 45 for this team, and then there are 22 for strategic thinking. So if you can read that. Okay. So as you can see, the domain with the most strengths when you look at the entire team is that of relationship building. So this team is really, really good at building relationships in all sorts of different ways because each of these strengths are different. So when you utilize each of these, each individual is going to relate a little differently. But this team as a whole, composite, is really great at building relationships. The next one would be executing, would be kind of the second highest at 30. So this team is great at building relationships and they're really great at getting things done. So that's kind of how they filter through things. So as we look at that, then we want to take a look at maybe 1 or 2 strengths that are really, really prominent for this whole team. And so if you count up, then you would count vertically with each of the strengths. And if you count it up, the top strength for this team is that of empathy. So I'm going to circle empathy here because there are 9 individuals on this team of 20 or 21, I believe, that have empathy in their top 5. So it's a little less than half, but that's the largest strength, the most frequently seen strength, what you would say the mode, if you're speaking statistically, the one that occurs the most within this group. And so that's really good to know about a team, is that this team is really great in Company X about building relationships, but then more so than that, they build relationships through empathizing with other people. So when you take a look at maybe some team dynamics, some changes, when we kind of more get into analyzing that, it's really good to know how the team filters things. This is predominantly how they're going to filter through change, how they're going to filter through new leadership, how they're going to do their work even if they don't have a lot of executing themes. Since empathy is so strong, a lot of what they do, how they influence, and how they think is through the lens of empathy or through the lens of building relationships. So once you've taken a look kind of at a whole at this, we do want to note but not spend a lot of time on what are some areas that there is lack within the team. You never want to do this as an individual, because it doesn't even make sense, because as an individual, if you don't have some strengths, you know that you can either use your other strengths in tandem. So I can use like 2 of my strengths paired together to compensate for my weaknesses, what they would call, what normal society would call weaknesses, what Gallup calls your lesser talents, or I can look at complementary partnerships. So as an individual, you never really want to say, okay, well, I don't have this. Really, there are ways that you can mitigate those weaknesses, which is the strengths-based model. But as a team, it's always good to know when you have a composite of people, what are some of those lacks? Because we're going to do something very similar like you would with an individual to say, how can we compensate for some of those lacks? So in this case, there are 13 influencing themes as compared to 45 in relationship building. Influencing has the lowest. So in general, this team is great at building relationships, great at getting things done. They definitely think critically at times, and there are individuals who do a lot of that. And then but not as great as at influencing. And so that's something really good to note, is they're probably going to be people who will talk a lot in the office, tuck their heads down and get things done at work, but won't be great at rallying a team, at being able to bring a team together in the pure sense of influencing through influencing talents. And so after we've looked at the team as a whole in that way, we're going to break it down and look at some individuals within the team. So first, what I'm going to take a look at is individuals who are dominant in one domain or another. And everyone is dominant in one domain or another. You might have 2 in one and then 3 in each of the other ones. You might have 2, 2, 1. But we're going to look at the individuals that have 3 out of their top 5 in one of the domain. That means that they're very, very strong at doing one of these 4 core areas of leadership. And they're going to be people that this team can look to if there is lack, if they are going through a difficult situation and they know they need to build stronger relationships with each other. They know they need to think critically about the future or about what's going on. They know they need to influence or execute. This team can look to these individuals for leadership in these areas. So in this case, we have Abraham. Oh, my pen is running out. Who is great at executing. He has 3 strengths within the executing domain. Same goes for Alyssa here. Same goes for Scott and Tony. So I'm circling their strengths because then we can really highlight these individuals in terms of that one domain. I will move on to influencing. We do not have anyone that has 3 in influencing and 1 individual. I'm going to look into relationship building. We have quite a few here. In this case, we have Bob. We have Bernadette. We have Janice.
That name.
It is, isn't it?
It's my
I want to meet her.
name.
Oh, that's wonderful. We have Karen. And we have, this is a little hard to read, Nancy. I missed one of Nancy's. We have Trinity. And so when we take a look at these, we see there are quite a few individuals that have, oh, and I missed one, Jim. We have quite a few individuals here that are dominant in relationship building. So if there are trust issues, if there are large changes that are happening, if there are new people that are introduced to the company, this could be a really great way to know to lean on these individuals in those situations to help build relationships. Again, each of them does it in a little different way because each of them have different strengths that come out, but they really are able to build relationships very strongly. Then the final, we'll look at strategic thinking. Looks like we have 2 individuals, Sophia and Tiffany, who are dominant in strategic thinking. So once again, if there is a change happening in the company, if there a strategic planning session to plan out the next few years. These are people that the organization can really look to in terms of thinking critically about the situation. And then the final step, once you've looked at the team as a whole, once you've looked at people who are really strong and dominant in an area, then what you want to do is you want to look for your outliers. And this is not in a negative connotation, again, because we're doing strengths, but it really is to take a look at those individuals who have a strength that nobody really else has. So who are those people who are really unique in that way, that have talents that are really, unique and different than the rest of the organization. And so in this case, I might look to Bernadette, who has deliberative, the only individual who has deliberative on this team. So how can we use Bernadette and her skills to be able to take a look at all of the potential roadblocks for a situation if we're approaching maybe a decision that the organization has to make? We could look to Harry, who has activator in his top 5, and really, if we're kind of maybe being able to use Bernadette and Harry and say, Bernadette, okay, what are all the potential roadblocks for this? Now, once we've made a decision, Bernadette will probably continue to look at all the roadblocks, but then how can we loop in Harry to then catalyze it to get it started? And that way with activator. So you would go through and you'd really take a look at some of these unique talents. We have Addison, who has input, the only one with input, it looks like, on this chart. So how can we use Addison to be able to collect all of this information that we can utilize in whatever situation is going on? So really, that's the final step to really taking a look at this company chart. So once again, we took a look at which domain is the most prevalent, which individual strength is the most prevalent, and then took a look at which domains are lesser for the whole team, just so we know. And then we took a look at individuals who are dominant in one domain specifically, and then we took a look at people with individual strengths that are unique for the team. So that really gives us a look at what we would say is dissecting this team map to be able to get a really good look at what does the composition of this team look like in terms of members.
Awesome. Okay, let's look at the questions now.
Okay.
I'm going to come back over. So this is the team blend activity, and what you do is you take a look at a team map, a talent map, team grid. So, and think a little bit about what might identify, what would be some things that we would know about this team, that we could ponder, we could think upon. Mm-hmm. So we kind of talked through what the top themes were as a team, what the patterns of behavior that might come of that, and we talked a little bit around relationship building. How does this team communicate?
That's a good question.
I think that has a lot of factors in that question. Maybe how does this team want to communicate? I think if we look at where we're here, that team would like to communicate probably in person. They're probably an in-person kind of, because relationship building is right here.
Yep.
So I would say that team may appreciate in-person communication. What drives this team? Building relationships, I think. It's very clear to see that one. How do they perceive achievement? Again, probably in building relationships. And in seeing the ways that relationships can be built more quickly or more effectively or in more meaningful ways. On this one, Tess, how would this team set a direction and make decisions, do you think?
I think for this team, especially because of the high empathy, and also there are quite a few belief individuals, I think in order to set a vision and a direction, this team needs to know the why behind it, needs to know the purpose, and that the purpose is going to help them continue to build relationships with each other or with those that they serve, their clients. And also with that belief is that a lot of these individuals have these unchanging core values. And so when they have a leader who's able to cast that in terms of this is where we're going forward, this is why we're going forward, this is why it matters, the work that we're doing matters in this way, that is really then able to get the team on the same page to be able to look towards the future. Even a lot of people may not have some of these strategic thinking themes that are able to say, okay, I totally see where you're going with this, I totally see that, but they need a leader who's able to really be able to say this is why we're doing what we're doing and this is where we're going. And in terms of making decisions, I think that a lot of decisions are going to be made based on the mission, based on the direction that is set forth. And from there, a lot of those decisions are then able to be made, and then the execution is able to happen.
So I am thinking about my personal family team map and how my input plus my empathy is anticipating more information, and I filter that through my heart. So actually, my husband and I were having this conversation. So we talk about strengths are not to be used as a label, but they're also not excuses not to do something.
Yes.
So my husband said to me, I don't have empathy in my top 5. And I went right to that does not mean that you are incapable of empathy. And he's like, empathy is very low for me. So we kind of talked through that. But then I'm thinking about in our personal family, what our talent map looks like, and how the next question, how do we respond and how do we resolve conflict? If we choose to see one another from the strengths perspective, truly, I mean, in the true strengths focus, we can see that each of us have things to bring to the table. I have 3 boys that lead with competition. So thinking through how they see situations of conflict even is going to be through that number 1 strength, especially at the age and stage they are. So when I was thinking about this next question, how would this team respond to and resolve conflict? I think it would be interesting to take a look at, from a true focus of strengths, what would happen if we took that conflict and pieced it out like this. And had someone like Tess who could say, now Allison is going to see this conflict from the lens of this, 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 and this. Almost like an interpreter. And wouldn't it be great if we had strengths interpreters that just walked around with us and helped us to better see this lens? Because this takes practice, and it takes focus, and it takes intention. Because we can talk about it a lot, but if we're not doing it, it makes it even more challenging, I think. Grab another one of those questions that appeals to you.
In what time frame would this team operate, short term or long term?
I think long term.
I would agree.
Because relationship building requires trust. And trust
Relationships
building.
move at the speed of trust.
Yes. And do you know who that's from?
Yeah, it's from Paul Thielen,
It is
right?
from Paul. If you were at Partnership last year, you may have heard Paul as our keynote, and he did a great job talking about that. Relationships move at the speed of trust. So trust building takes time. So I would say it's going to take some long-term problem solving when it comes to conflict resolution. And then also back to obstacles. And the next question is, how do we build and maintain relationships? If there isn't time to build trust, how potentially challenging this could be for this team.
Definitely. So these are some great questions, this team blend activity, to be able to take just really a descriptive look at the team and be able to really then relate it to how this team functions is very important. And so this is something that we took, this faux company would be an entire company, or it could be a smaller team of that. Like Ali mentioned, her family. I've done a team map with my family as well. This can be used and applied in so many different circumstances. And it's really great, another layer just to say, what do we look like as a whole? And then how can we take a look at that more intentionally to say, when we're going through difficult times, when there is a lack of communication, what do we need to look, how do we need to look at ourselves and our team differently in order to resolve some of those issues? So,
That was very well done.
well, thank you. I realized, though, when you showed it to me later that there are more people with input.
Yes.
So it's not an isolated one,
It's
but
not an isolated one.
it's a little hard to see from the other side.
However,
but
for Addison, it is a number 1. So
Very
it sometimes
strong.
may feel like an isolated one, for sure.
definitely. But
So I am a big fan of the strengths mapping. I had my family recently do the strengths map as well. So this doesn't just apply to big, broad teams and organizations. You can do this with your family. You can do this. Imagine what this would look like if you put all of your mentors in here. and thought about the ways that your mentors want to be approached, how they might want to receive information, what might be the best way to gather them.
Or give recognition.
Yes.
Everyone likes recognition a little differently.
Yes, absolutely. So hopefully this was helpful. I'll send the information in the attachment so that you can give this a try for yourself and plug in whether it's your family or whether it's a team that you are on at work or maybe in a volunteer organization. We really see some benefits when we talk and look at the map a little bit more closely.
Yeah.
And
let us know too.
Yes.
If you try this, let us know. We would always love to help. I love reading maps, as Ali said. So if you need help or have a question about something, or just tell us about your experience, we love to hear feedback from what you learn and what you then apply to a situation in your life. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.